Canadian police arrested at least 11 demonstrators and seized a batch of weapons and body armor from the Canadian truckers' protest and blockade. Monday marked the third week in which truckers blocked major roads and thoroughfares in protest of COVID-19 mandates for drivers transporting goods between Canada and the U.S. Despite the persistent threats of violence connected to the protests, some Republican lawmakers in this country have even championed the efforts of the truckers. Many of these same Republicans have been critical of Black Lives Matter protests right here in the United States. Florida's governor even signed anti-protest legislation that shields residents from liability if they happen to kill a protester. But the hypocrisy does not end there. Kentucky Senator Rand Paul, who once described Black Lives Matter protesters as an angry, crazed mob, had this to say in an interview with the Daily Signal. Civil disobedience is a time-honored tradition in our country, from slavery to civil rights, you name it. Peaceful protests clog things up and make people think about the mandates. As of last April, Republican leaders in 34 states had introduced 80 anti-protest bills following the protests from the last summer in response to police brutality. But many of these same Republican leaders support the Canadian protests. Joining us to discuss is CQ Roll Call columnist and Equal Time podcast host, Mary C. Curtis. Mary, they always tell us not everything is about race. You guys always make everything about race. But things like this make you believe like the only thing that it's about is race, because it's not about clogging up streets. Because on the one hand, you can be completely for it. It's not about protest, because when these people are doing it, you can be completely for it. The difference here is that when the black people were out protesting and white, black, Asian, Hispanic people were protesting in support of those black people, that was your problem. Is this just about race in this case, Mary?
I think it definitely is. Talk about irony, hypocrisy. These folks who are law and order, supposedly, are endorsing lawlessness. And the folks who are populist, actually, most Canadian truckers, I think over 90% are vaccinated. This is just a few folks. And we see a lot of far-right groups signing on to it. And these folks are getting money from right-wingers and conservatives in this country to really back up their lawlessness. And also, they're hurting the economy, because we see that auto workers, manufacturers, agriculture in Michigan and elsewhere are really being damaged by these protests. So it's not about inflation. It's not about law and order. It seems to be about race, Charles.
And listen, I don't know the demographics of all the truckers who are protesting. I only see the pictures. In the pictures, I see a whole lot of white men. And they make excuses for these white men and their behavior. It reminds me a lot about January 6th. I saw a whole lot of white men, and I watched Republican after Republican make excuses for their behavior. It was a picnic, it was a tour, it was whatever they wanted to call it, other than an assault on the Capitol. And you know, we try not to do this game like, what if it were? But what if it were Black Lives Matter protesters who were found with guns and ammo and that type of weapons at the border, at an international border? What if it were Black Lives Matter protesters smashing out the windows of the Capitol, running through and wiping feces on the walls? I mean, it's really hard to understand, even on the level of hypocrisy. It's hard to understand how you could even twist yourself into that big of a pretzel to justify these white men doing what they are doing. How do you think that they do that? I mean, I don't want to like psychoanalyze them, but like, how do you think they do that?
Well, because certain people have rights that are to be respected and certain people do not. These are people who are breaking the laws. We saw the same pattern when they came to the defense of Clive Bundy and all of these folks who were occupying federal parks. And we could play that what if game. What if minorities were doing that? Well, we don't have to play it, because we saw whether it was Black Lives Matter protesters or Native Americans protesting pipeline development, they were met with full force, with violence, even when the majority of them were peaceful protesters. So it is basically not the dog whistle anymore. It is the bullhorn that laws apply to certain people. And the way, as you said in your promo, they have laws in these states that protesters can be actually run over and not suffer penalties shows just what they think of Black Lives Matter and folks who are actually protesting for justice. And for Senator Paul to bring up civil rights when he has a troubled history. Remember, he's the one who said the Civil Rights Act of 1964 had unintended consequences because of private property rules, is pretty rich, I do believe.
But isn't that a thing now, people wrapping a kind of oppressive policy in civil rights language and behind civil rights imagery? Isn't that like the tactic now? This is how you move things forward. Even the language around the critical race theory is, to make sure that no one teaches that any race is superior or inferior to another, right? That sounds like almost like a civil rights lesson, right? That's the right thing to do. But in the fine details of it, they're basically saying, and don't teach that we ever did that.
Yeah, well, it is Orwellian what they have done with language. Because look, they say it is patriotic to fight the government and assault police, which is Orwellian. They say that it is a matter of freedom when they are actually taking rights away from folks. So you're right, they're twisting the very language of it. And the ultimate, of course, is that white males are the victims. And we see this come up again and again. They are taking your rights away by not allowing you to, not wear not wear masks and ignore mandates, and also infringe on the rights of others. And it is, you're right. They're flipping everything on its head. But Charles, we wonder if it will work with their base, and that's the thing, because they're getting bombarded with this day after day after day that to fight the government, a democratically elected government, is indeed the patriotic thing to do. And it's the opposite.
They're following Donald Trump, and Donald Trump is a man who made being a victim macho. Mary C. Curtis, thank you so much for joining us tonight. I really appreciate you once again.